For Harikrishna, day 2 at the St. Louis Rapid 2020 wasn't particularly a very happy day. He lost 2 games and drew 1. But the game which we are going to see once again shows what a wonderful endgame player he is. So this is his game against Aronian. Aronian is white, opened with c4, and we once again saw the Caro Kann opening. E5, bishop f5, and as we see the trend these days, bishop d3 is slowly and steadily becoming quite important. H4 including this followed by bishop d3 is also played, but here Levon decided to keep it simple. He played bishop d3, takes, e6, knight e2, check, c3. I believe c3 may not be the best way to meet this. Maybe knight d2 is more appropriate, so that after queen a6 you could think about a move like c4. This is definitely something that has to be looked into. But c3, queen a6, and now Levon played queen d1. Now this way of playing is pretty unambitious, and Harikrishna instantly struck in the center with the move c5. Bishop e3 was played, and the more I looked at this position, the more I realized that black needs to be slightly accurate over here. I think Harikrishna's next move, knight d7, is something that I'm not too impressed with. It's a okay move, not a bad move at all. He is defending the c5 pawn and stopping white from taking on c5. But I thought about c takes d4, and I felt that after cd, black can go knight to e7. Now the point of this move is that I want to quickly put my knight on f5. White cannot really stop me from doing that with knight g3, because once he does that, it's difficult for him to castle. So let's say if white castles here, then I go knight f5, and now already my other knight is coming to c6, bishop is coming to e7, and I'm castling, and I think black is equal. So this is how Harikrishna could have equalized, I think. But knight d7 castles, and now knight e7, knight g3 already gives me a feeling that here white is planning to quickly get in the move f4, f5. Yet I still believe that after cd, knight f6 was played in the game. But maybe here instead of cd he could go knight c6, f4, and queen b6, putting pressure here, and some pressure down here, which stops f5. And let's say after b3 you go g6, and I think black is still fighting hard. Here black should be around equal. But when he took and played f6, I think white is already much better. You can just feel it. White has castled. The black king is in the center. These pieces look not so good. The queen now suddenly looks a little funny on a6, and so Aronian rightly took. He could also have continued knight c3, giving up pawns, like take. If you take here knight e5, already a very powerful move could be a4, threatening, knight b5 coming in, bishop d4, bishop f4. It looks ugly. The king on e8 is very weak. So e into f6 was played, knight f6, and now bishop went to g5. Hari tried knight g6, knight developed to c3, bishop e7, and now a powerful move for white has to be found. Can you do it? White to play. Well done if you spotted the move f4. This is a powerful move because now the threat is to play f5 in this position, and already Hari is in big trouble. Castles, f5 came in, and if you're now going to take here, then after knight f5, I'm threatening the bishop. I'm also threatening to take and then take the pawn on d5. So problems there. Harikrishna went for knight d7, and now here try to pause this video and think, how would you continue? Because a few pieces are hanging. You see, this knight is hanging here, but at the same time the bishop is hanging. If you take on e7, the knight will take back. So Hari is trying to cling on here, but there is a good move for white. What is that? Well, if you found the move queen g4, you are in better form right now than Aronian, because queen g4 is just so powerful. First of all, this knight is hanging. Also, you don't want to take on f5, because then knight takes f5 is very powerful. And if you take on g5, then after queen g5, that all the threats remain in the position, and already white has a very, very serious advantage here. It was, I think, good for Hari that Aronian did not play queen g4 and instead went rook e1. He took on g5, rook e6, queen c4, fg, hg, rook g6. And although white has won a pawn, here black has enough activity to hold the balance with rook f7, knight h5 and queen d4. Take on d5, take, and we have a position where black is a pawn down, but you know, these back rank issues here do create some problem. b3, rook f8, now threatening a mate again. And here g3 was, I think, not accurate. And df4 had to be played, because if now rook takes here, then white wins with rook d6, and the bishop has to move, and d7, knight falls. So g3 wasn't the best here. After check, white is black is very active, wins back a pawn. And now we come to the very nice moment of the game. King e7, king f7, take on d4. And here I mean, anyone would expect that Harikrishna would take here, but and this is around equal, you know, this is not at all troublesome position. I think after something like knight takes g7, you go a5, and yes, black may have to suffer a bit here, but his pawn is very quick and he will win one of the pawns here, and then he'll be able to draw. But Hari found a very, very interesting move, which is rook takes h2 and it came as, I think, a surprise to everyone, because takes knight f3 check, and he takes the rook, and he tells Aronian that, look, your knight is hanging and so is your pawn, what are you going to do about it? Aronian said, yes, but I have another pawn on g3. Have you calculated it correctly? What are you doing? You gave me a piece. Well, the point is that here Harikrishna took on b3. Maybe a very interesting move that computer suggests is a5, and the reason for it is that now this pawn is sort of pinned down and you will win it. But if you try to win the d6 pawn, then after king e6, knight takes b7, knight b3, the funny thing here, or you could even start off with not king e6 but king e7, and then you take and knight b3, the knight is dominated and the king coming to c7 will take the knight. So that's the reason why a5 was more accurate in this position, but Harikrishna took on b3, and then after knight into a7, played g6, knight f4, g5, knight e2 and g4. Now if you give this position to any engine which doesn't have table base installed in it, this would be given as a win for white. But you know, there is a very important rule which is the Troitsky's line, and the Troitsky's line states, let me just show you guys what the Troitsky's line tells, is that when the opponent has two knights, it is of course not winning. Yeah, like two knights, let's remove all the pieces and just keep two knights. The two knights cannot win. But if the opponent has a pawn, there are chances to win if the pawn is on or behind the Troitsky's line. Now here you can say that, see, the Troitsky's line is basically pawns which are like this. Yeah, this is the Troitsky's line, and here if you see, this pawn on b7 is behind the Troitsky's line. But at the same time, all that Harikrishna has to do is use his knight and sacrifice it for this pawn and push this pawn ahead of the Troitsky's line, and it's drawn. So that's the reason why this position is drawn. After knight b5, knight d2, knight c3, king e6, king f2, king d7, king e2, knight to f3. And I think Levon knew about this Troitsky's line. That's why he placed his knights in a way that the pawn cannot move 2 squares further. So he's got that thing under control. So if Hari just sacrifices his knight here for the pawn and loses this pawn, he would lose the game. Yeah. But what Harikrishna did is he played knight h2. And his point is that now I'm not allowing you to win this pawn here. If this knight moves away, I will come and attack this, and then I'll be able to push it beyond the Troitsky's line. And if you don't move these pieces, then your king alone cannot win this pawn. So it's, he saw all these permutation combinations, and right now he just keeps his king here. Knight d4, king c5, and now knight db5 was played again. If king d3 would have been played, I believe that Hari would have attacked the pawn on g3, knight e4, king d5, and after something like say knight b3, even knight b5 doesn't work, because I just take and play king c5 and I attack your knight. You have to save it. Let's say you go here and I play b5 and it's a draw. Just think about it. Yeah, you need to, I'll start pushing the pawn, you will block it. You need one knight and a king to push the black king. So you need to take one of the pawns, and then the remaining pawn, either of the two, are both ahead of the Troitsky's line, and that's why it's a draw. And even if you, let's say in this case you play knight b3, I still play take and b5, and once again it's a draw. So king c5, ndf5. The end is very nice because Hari now plays king c4 and king e3, b6, king f4. As we know already by now that a move like knight f1 would be a mistake, because after king f4, I mean mistake in the sense you have to go back to h2 and defend. But if you take here, this would be a complete mistake, because after takes, b6, take, this is a winning position. All that you need to do now is use your king and this knight to push the king into one of the corners somewhere on the board, and then you remove this knight and try to checkmate, and this pawn is not going to queen. b6, king f4, king b4, and now this knight cannot move because this hangs. The c3 knight cannot move because this guy hangs. The king cannot take this pawn. It's some kind of a nice position. Nothing moves away, and at the end of it, the players agreed to a draw. And that's why you can see that Harikrishna's knowledge of the Troitsky's line came in so handy that he managed to confidently, sacrifice his rook in this very position for and just go into the end game. If you were not confident, you would play king e7 and then try to hold this end game. But Hari was very confident and he managed to hold this. Well, that's all from me right now. I think you understand how theoretical study of endgames is useful in practical games. So keep studying and keep following my videos on ChessBase India. This is Sagar Shah signing off. Bye bye.